Hello, everyone, and welcome to heaven. That's right, heaven. Right, aren't you excited about that? Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Hey, this place doesn't look like heaven. Where are the pearly gates and the streets that's lined with gold? Well, don't worry about that. All of those things of beauty and much more are just outside that door. This is the orientation room. You see, God, in His infinite wisdom, decided to establish new souls orientation sessions to help you make the transition from mortal to immortality just a little bit easier. Now, you probably think that you're sitting in your physical bodies right now, right? Well, look, it takes a little while for the soul to realize that it's living outside of its earthly body. Oh, forgive me. I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Paul, and I'm the apostle and servant of Jesus Christ, whom you read about in the Bible. And I'm the facilitator of this orientation session. Now that you're in heaven, it is important that you understand how to live eternally. Now, initially, you'll think and you'll act like you did when you were on earth. I know I did. But there are a few things that you really need to know. First, I want you to relax. There's no need to rush. The concept of time does not exist in eternity. There are no hours, days, weeks, or years. There are just moments of eternity. And we live from moment to moment. So, time-based phrases like just a minute, in a second, maybe tomorrow. When did that happen? How long has it been? And child, I haven't seen you in years. Those phrases are no longer applicable in heaven. Second, worldly possessions. Now, worldly possessions are not allowed in heaven. So, don't go looking for the car, the house, the jewelry, the clothes, the money, the hair weave, or anything else you struggled all your life to acquire on earth. Your friends and family were right when they said you can't take it with you. And finally, personal relationships. Now, there are no husbands or wives in heaven. The marriage vow states, till death do you part. Well, you're dead now, so you have parted, and the marriage is over. And if you didn't meet your soulmate on earth, well, you just lost out because there's no dating in heaven. Well, let's see what's going on. Let me get my cloud pad. We keep data in the actual cloud up here. All right, this is orientation session number 132,719,465,318,655. So now, I know you're wondering, where is Jesus? You want to see Jesus, right? Well, don't worry about that because Jesus wants to see you too. I mean, He died to see you. But at this eternity moment, Jesus is greeting new souls at orientation session number 132,719,465,318,654. But in addition to meeting Jesus, every new soul wants to meet someone whom they read about in the Bible. So God assigns a few souls from people in the Bible to come and speak at every orientation session. Well, let's see whom God assigned to you. Oh, you guys are really blessed. God assigned 4 great speakers to greet you. Adam, Noah, Moses and Dismas, the thief whom Jesus saved on the cross. Well, let's get this orientation session started. The first speaker needs no introduction. He was the first human being whom God created, and he's coming now to share his earthly experiences with you. Please welcome Adam. Well, thank you, Paul, and hello, everyone, and welcome to heaven. Now, I normally don't do orientations, but God selected me to come and speak to you. Needless to say, I learned the hard way to obey God. Now, I know what you're thinking. If I had just obeyed God in the Garden of Eden, you would have lived a perfect life. Oh, no fighting, no fussing, no reality TV shows. Your hearts and minds would have been pure and in perfect harmony with God. Well, I'm sorry I put you through all of that, but at least you're here now. You know, many souls often ask me, what was it like being the first human being? Well, to be honest, it felt kind of weird. You know, one moment you're not, and the next moment you are. Oh, I didn't grow into adulthood. I just opened my eyes and I was a grown man. I didn't have any childhood memories. I never learned how to walk. I just knew how. All I did was walk and eat and sleep and eat and sleep and walk day after day after day. Well, eventually, God got tired of me walking around doing nothing. So he decided to put me to work naming the animals. Believe me, that was a job. Do you have any idea of how many different species of animals God created? Well, one day, all of these animals start coming up to me, looking for a name. Now, at first, I would examine each animal carefully and try to think of a name that was kind of reflective of their appearance and stature. Oh, I'll name you Tiger, and I'll name you Lion, and I'll name you Bear, and this went on for days. But eventually, I started to feel kind of strange. I didn't realize it at the time, but work makes you tired. And the more tired I became, the more my naming skills began to suffer. Oh, it wasn't long that I was just calling animals anything. Oh, you look odd. I'll call you an aardvark. Well, what are you laughing at, hyena? And just where do you think you're going? Well, see you later, alligator. And then I looked around, and there were thousands of animals still in line waiting for a name. And I was already tired. That's when I remembered that God told me I had free will. That's right. I could do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. So I decided to exercise my free will and take a break. So I told the animals to come back tomorrow. Oh, what the heaven, come back next week. I'm going to take a vacation. So as all the animals began to walk away, I noticed they all had a mate. Someone that kind of looked like them. So I ran up the hill and I looked around to see if I could find someone like me. And it hit me. Hey, I'm the only human being on earth. So I go to God and I say, God, why isn't there another human being? Someone that looks like me, someone I can walk with, someone I can talk with, someone who can help me finish naming these animals. And God said,
Adam, you're right. It's not good for man to be alone, so I'm going to create you a helpmate.
And I said, cool. Oh, I'm down with that. Then God continued.
I can see that man gets tired quickly, so I'm going to create someone who can work hard and not complain. Someone who can keep the garden clean and clean up after themselves. Someone who can walk, talk, and think at the same time. I'm going to create a better human being because I see your flaws. I just created you a few days ago, and you're already tired. You haven't finished naming the animals. You take too many breaks. You ask for help too soon. You walk around like you're lost. You look dazed and confused. I can see that man needs some help. So I'm going to create a Superman and call her woman.
Well. It wasn't long after that God put me in this deep sleep. Then he removed the rib from my side. It must have been a spare rib. But when I opened my eyes, I saw this gorgeous woman standing over me. Oh, she was tall and slender with silky brown skin and big, beautiful eyes and long flowing hair. Oh, I'll never forget the moment I heard another human voice for the very first time. Oh, she leaned over and said, Adam, why in the world are you still lying down? You better get yourself on up and finish naming these animals. You know what God told you to do? And that's when I uttered the phrase that married men have been using since the beginning of time. Yes, dear. Well, needless to say, my work vacation was cut short. So for the next several days, I continued to name the animals as the woman whom I named Eve sat nearby and watched. Oh, I asked Eve if she would like to help, but she just looked at me and said, name some animals? Child, I ain't naming no animals. That's not my ministry. Well, eventually, Eve got tired of watching me name the animals, so she told me she was going shopping. Oh, I didn't mind that. I mean, she wasn't helping me anyway. But I reminded Eve that God told us not to go shopping at the Apple store. Well, eventually, Eve started walking around the garden shopping, and she ran into this nice guy, who was really an animal, let me tell you. Anyway, there was an immediate attraction. I mean, let's face it. He smelled like fruit, and I smelled like sheep. Well, he took her on this grand tour of the garden, and they ended at, you know where, the Apple store. Now, initially, Eve was hesitant to enter the store. But then he said those words that no woman can resist. They're having a sale. That's right. Apples are free today only. And not only that, you get a free bonus gift of knowledge of good and evil. Well, Eve just could not resist the sale, even though she already had fruit from the other stores. So she took a bite. Now, after I had finished naming the animals, I went out looking for Eve. And I eventually found her and her little animal friend over at the Apple store. As soon as I arrived, Eve offered me a bite of the apple. Now, I remembered what God said. So I told Eve, let's go over here and eat some pears and cantaloupe instead of the apple. But Eve just looks at me and says, pears and cantaloupe? Who in the world would choose PCs over an apple? And then her little animal friend, he jumped in and started talking about the free knowledge bonus gift. Now I'm starting to think a little. You know, I really struggled with my first job, naming the animals. So perhaps a little extra knowledge might help me with my next assignment, naming the insects. So I decided to take a bite. And immediately, Eve and I began to feel strange. I looked at Eve and I saw the radiance of her beauty slowly begin to fade away. It was like her own shadow was covering her. And I can tell from her eyes, she noticed the same thing was happening to me. We didn't know what was happening, but we know we had changed. We didn't look the same. We didn't feel the same. And for the first time, we were afraid. So when I heard God calling my name, I told Eve, come, let's hide behind this bush so God won't see us. But Eve said, well, I like the color of that bush over there better, so let's hide behind that one. And I said, well, what difference does the color make? Well, I am not hiding behind no ugly bush. And before you knew it, we were having the first husband and wife argument over what bush to hide behind. I mean, it got so bad that God had to break us up.
Hey, what are you two arguing about?
Well, God, we wanted to hide because we were naked, but Eve did not like the bush I picked.
Wait a minute. Who told you that you were naked? Did you go shopping at the Apple store, where I commanded you not to shop?
Now, I hadn't known God long, but I can tell he was pretty upset. And I just knew I had to think of a way to get out of this. And then it hit me. Eve has been bossing me around ever since she was created. I'm going to just blame her. God, this is all Eve's fault. She offered me this apple and then she talked me into eating it. Now, you know how tempting and persuasive a woman can be. But then Eve did something I had never seen before. She made water come from her eyes. Good. Oh, God, you know how these men are. I was just created a few days ago, and Adam never once told me that he loved me. Then I met this nice animal guy, and he talked to me, and he made me feel so special. Then he tricked me, oh yes he did, into eating the apple. Oh, these men are just no good. Unfortunately, God was not having any of it. He held all of us accountable for our actions. Because of my disobedience, I introduced sin into God's perfect world and severed the relationship between man and God. Mankind was destined to die. I didn't realize it at the time, but God already had a plan to reconcile man back to himself. One day, he would send his son Jesus to take away the penalty of sin so that you and I could be here. You see, my disobedience condemned us, but God's son redeemed us through his death on the cross. Well, I can go on and on and on, but we have eternity to get together. I just want to welcome you to heaven once again. Oh, and by the way, if you're running to Eve, tell her you like PCs better than apples. God bless you. Well, thank you, Adam. Just imagine, Adam and Eve were married for over 900 years. How many of you would like to be married to the same person for 900 years? How about 500? 100? Well, of course, no marriage will last as long as Adam and Eve's. But far too many marriages end before the other mate dies. How many of you would be surprised to see your ex in heaven? After new souls see Jesus and their family and friends, they start looking around heaven to see who else made it in. You know, like an ex-husband, an ex-wife, an old supervisor. You know, the people whom you told where to go. Now you want to see if God sent them there. But the truth be told, there's some souls that's already in heaven that's going to be surprised to see some of you here. But praise God that can no man keep us out of heaven. For now we all have a personal testimony that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, neither height nor depth, nor any other creature will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus. Can I get a witness? Well, let's see who's next on our agenda. Okay, looks like Noah is next. Are you ready to hear from Noah? Please welcome Noah. Well, thank you, Paul. Well, you know, it's a pleasure to be here. Oh, my goodness. Welcome to heaven, everyone. Oh, most of you all look like you from my son Ham. I'll be sure to tell him that you're here. Oh, you just heard from my good friend Adam. You know, sometimes Adam and I, we go down to the Manor Cafe and grab a bite to eat. and reminisce about a life on earth. Every time we get together, we have this friendly debate about who had the hardest job. You see, now Adam's job was to name the animals, but my job was to save the animals. Now, it's one thing to be surrounded by thousands of animals in a big old beautiful garden with birds singing and a cool breeze just a-blowing and flowers all around you. Oh, but it's another thing to be surrounded by thousands of animals in a hot, smelly boat with big old mammals to your left and reptiles to your right and birds flying all up over you. Now, let me tell you, if you didn't step in it, it was dropped on you. Oh, but enough about me and Adam. I still remember when God first told me he wanted me to build an ark. Now, back in those days, the world was a lot worse than it was when you left the earth. Oh, everybody was just mean and evil. My family and I, we were the only people in the entire world that still worship God. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't a perfect man, but I served a perfect God, and I honored and praised him. You know, sometimes, I would hear God just kind of speaking to me, kind of in my head. Everybody thought I was a little off when I told them I heard voices in my head. My brother, he also heard voices, but he was a little off. But somehow, I knew that it was just God speaking to me. Well, one day God told me that he wanted me to build this ark. Now, frankly, I didn't know what ark was, but I just thought that if God wanted me to build it, well, it must be something pretty good. So I went on home and told my wife, I said, honey, God spoke to me today. Now my wife is this calm and laid-back woman. Oh, nothing much really ever bothers her or get her remotely excited. She just says, oh, that's so nice, dear. And I said, honey, he wants me to build this here ark. And my wife, she just continues to turn over the cakes in the oven, barely even looks up at me, and just says, well, dear, try to be home before it's dark. The boys are coming over for dinner. I didn't see a problem with that. You see, I'm pretty good with my hands. So I go over here and grab my tools, and I make my way back out here to the spot where God last spoke to me. Okay, Lord, here I am. By the way, what's an ark? And God said, Noah, it's a large boat. Now, I didn't want God to think that I was kind of slow in the head, so I just said, that's what I thought it was. That's what I thought it was. Well, how big do you want me to make this here boat? And that's when God threw me for a loop. He said,
make it the length of 1.5 football fields.
Football fields? See, there lies the challenge right there. When you serve an eternal God, football fields wouldn't be created for another 20,000 years. So I just had to ask God, well, how long is 1.5 football fields?
450 feet long, and make it 75 feet wide, 45 feet high, with 3 decks and a large door on the side.
Well, I immediately became worried and concerned. Oh, not because of the enormous task that God just assigned to me, but my wife is expecting me home for dinner. And this gonna take me more than a few hours. But I'm curious now. I said, Lord, well, just why do you want to build such a large boat?
Because the people of this world are evil. So I'm going to send a great flood to cover the earth and destroy all human life. But I will show mercy to you, your family, and a pair of every animal.
Oh, when I heard this news, I was devastated. I mean, this was too much for me to bear. So I hurried on back home, and I told my wife, I said, honey, God spoke to me again. Oh, that's twice in one day. Wonderful, dear. No, honey, I have some terrible news. God is going to send a great flood and destroy everybody in the world except me, you, and the kids. Honey, what are we going to do? And my wife, she just freezes for a moment and don't say a word. And then she slowly walks over to me and says, Noah, is God going to kill our neighbor Sarah, who hasn't spoken to me in years? Yes, dear, God is going to kill Sarah. And tell me, Noah, is God going to kill all the merchants in the city who overcharge us for food? Yes, dear. God is going to kill all the merchants. And Noah, will God have mercy on the women at the well who flirted with you last week? No, dear. God will not be merciful. Oh, he's going to kill everybody. Honey, what are we going to do? And my wife, she runs over to the corner and grabs an axe and comes back and says, well, I don't know about you, Noah, but I'm going to help God build that ark. Oh, Lord. From that moment on, my wife was a changed woman. I mean, just full of joy and excitement. I really don't understand it, but every time she would see Sarah and the women at the well, she would just look at them and smile. Well, later on that evening, the boys came over for dinner. And after we had all eaten, we went on out there, took the boys on out by the cypress tree so I could tell them the news. Well, my oldest son, Jim, says, hey, Dad, are you sure you just didn't have a bad dream after eating Mom's lamb stew last night? It was kind of spicy. But I assured the boys that I received this prophecy straight from the Lord's mouth to the inside of my head. Then my middle son, Japheth, he chimes in. Dad, building this ark seems like a lot of work. Why can't God just kill everybody he doesn't like? Like give them all a heart attack at the same time. And then my youngest son, Ham, some of your ancestors, he said, Ham jumps in. Hey, Pop, hey, man, look, why don't we just tell God to lift us up in the air, and then he could send that flood, wipe everybody else away. We ain't got to go through all this work, I'm just saying. I can say is that the Lord works in mysterious ways. Now, son, it's not our job to tell God how to destroy the world. All we can do is just watch him kill everybody. But then I took the boys over here to the spot where God told me to start. Okay, boys, we got to cut down all these trees. Hey, Pop, man. Pop, we are standing in the middle of the forest, man. I mean, does God want the four of us to cut down the forest? Well, son, it's really 5. Your mother is eager to help. But that's beside the point. We have to obey the Lord.
Well, Dad, just how much of this forest does God want us to cut down?
Well, I say about the length of 1.5 football fields. Now, when I said that, the boys were shocked. They started talking among themselves. Football, what is this strange word our father is using? Perhaps he really has received a revelation from God. Well, I didn't realize it at the time, but God in his infinite wisdom knew that the word football would get boys excited. And that's why they decided to help me build the ark. Well, the next day, we got up early and got started. 1 year went by, then 5 years, then 10 years, and 20 years, and we're still working on the ark. Now it's up to 50 years and 100 years. We finally finished building the ark after 120 years. Well, it probably would have been 200 years. But my wife, oh, she's a beast with that axe. I mean, she really wanted that ark built. And a few days after we finished building the ark, God commanded a pair of every animal, bird, and reptile to come into the ark. Oh, it took us about 2 whole days to get everything settled inside the ark. But on the 3rd day, God told me to hurry and get my family inside. No sooner than I closed the door, the floods came. Water from the great Euphrates River surged onto the land and lifted up the ark. And the rain came pouring down. Oh, it rained about 40 days and 40 nights. And let me tell you, I could only imagine that all that pouring rain represented the tears of God. How sad God must have felt when he had to punish the earth for man's sin. You know, we lived on that ark for 12 months. And you don't know how good it feels to breathe fresh air until you live with all creation for a year. And after it was all over, oh, I thank God for saving me and my family. You know, I did exactly what God told me to do. No matter how long it took, and no matter who agreed with it. Were the times when I wanted to quit? Oh, absolutely. But I didn't. And God honored my faith and obedience by saving me. And God honored your faith and obedience by saving you. That's why you're here. That's why you're here. Well, I just want to welcome you all to heaven once again. And I'm going to be sure to tell the ham that some of his people done got here. God bless. Well, thank you, Noah. Talk about patience and obedience. Noah focused on one job for 120 years. Oh, how we thank God for Noah's patience and obedience. But we also thank God for his patience with us, giving us time to be obedient to his word so that we might be here. Well, let's see who's next on our agenda. Oh, looks like Moses is next. Please welcome Moses. Well, thank you, Paul. And hello, everyone, and welcome to heaven. Now, before I get started, I want to make something perfectly clear. Charlton Heston is not Moses. I'm the real Moses. You see, on my way to this orientation, I heard a few souls call my name. But when I turned to greet them, they floated right past me and started circling around Charles. Now, come on. Does Charlton Heston look like me? I'm amazed at how many new souls think that people in the Bible actually look like characters they saw on TV. Oh, just wait until you see how Jesus really looks. Oh, he's going to blow your mind. Anyhow, I'm flattered that Charles starred in the movie about me. Oh, it was a good movie. It just didn't tell the whole story. Like the first conversation I had with God. True, there was a burning bush, but it's not unusual to see a bush on fire in the desert. I remember seeing that bush burning early in the morning on top of the mountain and thought nothing of it. But later that evening, I noticed the bush was still burning. So I decided to go up and check it out. And when I got within a few yards of the bush, I heard this voice. Moses, Moses, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remove your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground. I've heard the cries of my people living in bondage. Go to Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. I was in awe that the God of heaven, the great Jehovah, would speak to me. And I knelt and trembled before him. Then I thought about what he just said. Did God just tell me to go back to Egypt and confront Pharaoh? So I said, Lord, would you mind repeating that? Moses, I'm sending you to Egypt to free my people from the bondage of slavery. Now, to be honest, I really wasn't feeling that good about going back to Egypt. But how do you tell the God of all creation no? So I thought I might kind of ease into it with them. Lord, I am truly honored that you would think of me for this awesome job. But right now,
I'm kind of busy right here in Midian, with the wife and kids and caring for the desert, dusting off rocks. but thank you for thinking of me. This burning bush is really an eye catcher. One of these sheep herders will be up here real soon. Oh, they would be perfect for the job. You know how they love to fight. But thank you again for thinking of me, all right? So now, I think that I'm in the clear. So I make my way back to my sandals, and God calls me back again. Moses, come back here. I'm commanding you to go. Tell Pharaoh the Israelites must leave Egypt and come here to this mountain to worship. Now I'm really concerned. Not only does God want me to confront Pharaoh, but he wants me to bring those people back here. Near my home. Oh, I know these Israelites. They're going to come all up in here and eat all my food and mess up my crops and sacrifice my goats and sheep. So I said, Lord, do I have to bring those people back here? There's some prime desert property on the other side of the mountain by the Red Sea. Let's take them over there. Moses, you will lead my people here so they can worship me. Lord, these people are not going to follow me. I've been gone from Egypt for 40 years. They will ask, who sent me? What is his name? And what name shall I tell them? Tell them I am. Oh, what is your name? No, what is not my name? Oh, no, I'm not saying that what is your name. I'm asking, what is your name? I am. Lord, but you're not telling me your name. You just keep on saying, I am. That's right. What is right? No, what is wrong? Lord, what's wrong is that I don't know what to call you. Just call me by my name, which is I am. Lord, I'm so confused now, I don't know who I am. Well, that's me. Well, needless to say, I never got a straight answer from God about his name. But then God tells me that he's going to harden Pharaoh's heart so he won't let the people go. Now I'm really confused. So I said, Lord, isn't it just a little counterproductive to harden Pharaoh's heart if you want him to free your people? I'm just saying. Well, I see what you mean, Moses, but I have a couple of plagues that I've been really anxious to use for a long time. First, I'm going to start with the small stuff, like changing water to blood. Then, I'm going to send 1 billion frogs to cover all of Egypt. Then God starts talking about sending a plague of gnats, and a plague of flies, and a plague of locusts, and killing all the animals, and covering their skin with boils. He went on and on and on. I was starting to get nauseous. I just knew I had to think of a way to get out of this. And it hit me. Sometimes I stutter, sometimes when I get nervous. That's it. I'll just tell God that I don't speak well. Oh, by the time I finished talking to Pharaoh, the Israelites are being in bondage another 400 years. But I realized this is probably my last opportunity to convince God to send someone else. So I decide to over-exaggerate my stuttering. God, Speak. Moses, what are you doing? Well, I don't think I can speak well. Moses. You can't stutter your way out of this. I determine who speaks well and who doesn't. But you do have a point. I don't want the Israelites in bondage another 400 years waiting for you to speak up. So I tell you what I'll do. I'll send your brother Aaron with you. He speaks well. I'll tell you what to say. You will tell Aaron, and Aaron will speak to the people. Well, I just could not get out of this. And you know the rest of the story. God delivered the Israelites from bondage just like he said he would. God just wanted me to trust him. You see, I focused on my fear and my frailties instead of focusing on God's power. Oh, my good friend Paul phrased it best when he said that God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. I'm sure we can all think of a time back on earth when you didn't know what to do and you didn't know how you were going to make it. Those were the times when God was telling you to trust him. And once you put your trust in God, you made it through. Well, I just want to welcome you to heaven once again. And if by chance you run into Charlton Heston, just shout out my name and then float right by him. That'll trip him out. God bless you. Well, thank you, Moses. And we thank God for his all-encompassing name, I am. A name that uniquely identifies God. I am your provider. I am your protector. I am your healer. I am your burden bearer. I am your comforter. I am your shelter in a storm. I am your help in times of trouble. I am everything that you need. I am all that you need. Oh, we do praise God, the great I am. It's good to hear from men of great faith. But God also wants you to hear from a man who had just enough faith. Our last speaker is Dismas, the thief whom Jesus saved on the cross. Please welcome Dismas. Thank you, Paul. And hello, everyone, and welcome to heaven. You have just heard from a few great men of God. A great man of God, I was not. Even now in heaven, I'm in awe that God would choose me to greet you and to share my story. I still remember the day that Christ saved me. For me, it was not just an ordinary day.
You see, it was the day that I was dying. But more than just dying, I was being crucified alongside the Master. Prior to that day, my life was in many ways like the life some of you may have lived on earth. My family had many problems. Yes, I was abused as a child, neglected as a child, despised for being a child. I mean, times were rough. And I had to grow up fast, or I might not grow up at all. My parents didn't take care of me. I had to take care of myself. The religious leaders, they were not looking out for me. The Pharisees and the Sadducees were just trying to impress people with their pious ways, perpetrating men of God, walking around in long fancy robes, quoting laws and shouting prayers in the street. Those prayers were not helping me. Those prayers were not giving me hope and showing me how to live right. My soul was lost. And all they cared about was whether I was obeying the law. No, the religious leaders were not helping me. They were more interested in their leadership position in the temple. The government? No, the government was not helping me. Rome was the most powerful nation in the world, but all Rome cared about was whether I was paying my taxes. You see, there was no one to help me. So I had to help myself, and I became a thief. The best thief in the city. I did whatever I needed to do to survive. My boys, they all got caught doing the same thing I was doing. But I'll never get caught. No one would see me. I didn't know God then. But God knew me. And he saw everything that I did and patiently waited for me to change. But I wasn't going to change. You see, my own sin and greed, it blinded me. The day finally came when God removed his hand of mercy from me. I was arrested, convicted, and sent to the cross to be crucified. The other thief and I were already on the cross when Jesus arrived. Hanging 20 feet high on the cross, I could see a huge crowd following Jesus to Golgotha. They were cheering and shouting at him as his body limped under the weight of that heavy cross. And when he finally reached Calvary, I couldn't believe my eyes. His back was scarred and burned from the soldiers' whips, and his face and his eyes were swollen and bloody from the soldiers' beating, and upon his head was a crown of thorns that stuck deep into his flesh. Even in my agonizing pain, I felt sympathy for his suffering. Tears filled my eyes, and my own heart began to break with every nail that was pounded into his flesh. And then I saw the Roman soldiers lift him up between the other thief and I. The noise from the crowd was deafening, but somehow I heard the other thief say, If you are the Christ, save yourself and us. Now, my initial instinct was to beg for my life along with the other thief. But I felt there was just something different about this man. You see, I had heard about Jesus, how he had healed the sick and cast out demons and restored sight to the blind, how he taught people to love one another and their enemies, how he offered people hope, love, and peace. And that's all that I ever really wanted. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this Jesus was everything I had been looking for all my life. So I said to the other thief, "Do you not fear God, even when you're dying? I mean, we deserve to die for the evil deeds that we have done. But this man is innocent, and he's done nothing wrong." Then I turned to Jesus and looked at him. I know I didn't deserve to be associated with him, but maybe, I mean, just maybe he would be willing to forgive me for all the wrong that I've done. So I said, "Lord, please remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus slowly lifted his head in the midst of all his pain and suffering. And with tears in his eyes, he looked at me and said, "Today you shall be with me in paradise." Oh, I'll never forget that moment. All the pain I carried inside was gone. No, not the physical pain of the cross, but the pain of loneliness, anger, despair, and hopelessness. I was at peace for the first time in my life while I was dying. This Jesus didn't care who I was, how I looked, or what I had done. He just wanted me to yield my heart to him. And at the brink of death, I was saved by God's grace. And I made it. I made it in. I made it. And if God can save a wretch like me, if God can save a sinner like me, if God can save a nobody like me, then he can save anybody. All they have to do is confess with their mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in their heart that God raised him from the dead, and they too will be saved by the grace and the mercy of God, just like I was. Oh, how Dismas's testimony still even now touches my soul. Oh, we thank God for his saving power, his saving grace, and his saving mercy. For even when Adam's sin separated us from God, God provided a way to reconcile man back to himself. And when sin abounded all around Noah, God's love abounded even more and saved the faithful. And just like God delivered the Israelites from the bondage of slavery, he has delivered us from the grip of death. And because we believed that Jesus is God's Son, who died for our sin, was buried, and rose from the dead, we too have been invited to live in paradise for him, just like Dismas. And we made it. You made it. You're here. Rise up and praise God. You're here. Give God the praise. No more problems. No more worries. You're here. No more heartbreak. No more trials. No more tribulations. You're here. You made it. You're here. Welcome to heaven.